of our Toastmasters workshop, which will be, believe me, very helpful to all of you present here. So today's session is about how to give proper PIs and GDs, that is group discussions, which will be covered by our very own area director, Toastmaster Kratika and Toastmaster Abhishek. I'm really looking forward to see what they have in stock for us. So without any further delay, let's start this session as I hand over the session to the trainers.
Thank you, Toastmasters Sudhanshu. Good evening, guys. Can I get a loud good evening? Just unmute, say good evening. I'm sorry that I sound like a prof, but yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
So, yes, welcome to the 4th session of Eloquence 2022. My name is Toastmaster Abhishek, and I have with me my incredibly talented fellow trainer, Toastmaster Kratika. And we are here today to take a session on how to excel in group discussions and PIs, right? So, before we actually begin, I have some disclaimers to reveal and some ground rules to set, okay? First things first, whatever tips that we give you, whatever tips that you read online, please take it with a pinch of salt. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me use the salt example itself, right? Sodium plus chlorine gives you sodium chloride. Now, this is a definitive reaction under the right conditions, yes or no? But there is nothing that is definite about group discussions or personal interviews. Why? Because there is so many factors that come into play, so many chips that come into play that you just can't predict what will happen, right? But does this mean that you'll have to go it unprepared? No, it absolutely does not, right? What you're supposed to be doing is prepare yourself to the best of your ability. And how to prepare? Well, the two of us got you, right? Don't worry, relax, sit still, and enjoy this session. Now I'll set my ground rule, right? At any point of time, when we are explaining a concept or giving an example, if you guys feel like you want us to repeat a particular point, if you want us to clarify something a bit or explain a bit more or give another example if you cannot relate to that example, please unmute and ask then and there, or raise your hand, we will get to you, put it in the chat, whatever it is you want, right? So the point of this session is that you guys take back as much as you can, right? And that only happens if you guys ask questions, okay? So without further ado, let me begin the session. I hope all of you can see my screen. Can you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, all right, fantastic. Let me just go to presentation mode. So yes, Eloquence 2022 group discussions and personal interviews. Over to you, Kratika.
Okay. So thank you, first of all, Toastmaster Abhishek, who is the area admin manager for the entire area, a post that we have for 4 clubs. So we work for the 4 clubs. And this person here is extremely practical and helped me out in everything. Coming to the agenda for today's meeting, we have 2 things planned. First one is for GD and the second one is for PI. In GD, we will first have a small icebreaker activity, and then we will talk about what to do in the beginning of a group discussion, how the discussion, what to do during the discussion, and how to go about it. Then, in the part of closing, and finally, we will have sort of a hands-on exercise for all of you so that you get the feel of it. In the PI section, we have divided the same into 3. What will happen? What will you do before the interview, during the interview, and after the interview? With this, we will now like to go straight into the icebreaker that we have planned for.
Yep. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play a little game, okay? And for this game, I require 6 volunteers. The first 6 people to volunteer will get to take part in this game. So can I get some volunteers, please?
Okay, I'll volunteer.
Okay, wait, hold on 1 second. Who was that who volunteered? Sarthak. Okay, Sarthak, I see Sanjana's hands raised. I see Lavanya's hands raised. We have three more people. Okay, we have Lakshi and we have Chanchal. Right? I need one more, Samya. I've set 6 names, right? Lavanya, Sanjana, Sarthak, Chanchal, Lakshi, and Samya, I think. Right? So, okay. Your activity is this, right? or your game that we're going to play is this. So you guys, the 6 of you, have been inducted into Toastmasters. Okay. And to celebrate your induction into Toastmasters, all of us are going on a trip, right, to some fancy ass place. Now there's a problem. When we're on our plane, we see that outside there's a huge storm that's brewing. And the plane that you're on crashes because of the storm. The only people who are alive are the 6 of you, right? And you end up washed ashore on a tropical island. Enter the game. Deserted Island Escape. So the purpose of this game is for you guys to try and find a way to escape from this island that you've crashed in, right? The rules of the games are this. When you first enter into the island, you see 2 skeletons, right? Scary looking skeletons of people who've crashed there before you and have tried to escape but failed. But lucky for you, whatever supplies that they tried to use or they had with them is still there on that island. And you look at it and it's almost about to drown into the ocean, right? So each of you have just enough time to pick one item from that supply bag. On this slide, there are 12 items and there are 6 of you, right? Each of you are going to pick one item from the items listed, and based on your strengths, based on your personality, whatever it is, right? And then you're going to come up with a plan on using these items and forming a plan to escape the island. Okay. The rest of us, the audience, we're going to observe how you guys go ahead picking your items, why you guys choose those items, and we're going to listen to your plan and maybe learn from them, right? In case we are stuck on an island somewhere, right? So that is the game today. The 6 of you, it's over to you now. I'll keep the items listed on the screen so you guys don't have to like remember them, right? So just I hope you understood the rules of the game. If not, you can ask me again. Otherwise, we can start the game.
Okay, so as soon as we can select, we can tell you, no?
Yeah. So this is a discussion, right? So you'll be discussing amongst yourselves. Ideally, based on your strengths, you'll pick up the item that you pick up, and yeah, why you would pick up the item. All of that will be under discussion. So we'll just be observing. You guys will be discussing.
Start the discussion?
Yes, you can start the discussion.
Okay, so I think the 3 basic things that we need to pick up is first a Swiss Army knife, second a fishing net, and third a 100-foot rope. So rope and basically knife is the most useful thing to cut things and even for our protection. And rope is helpful to tie things up so we can form a basic shed to live under. And fishing net is just for catching fishes so we can have a ample amount of food. This is what I think that the 3 basic things are.
Okay, what I think is we should definitely take kerosene and a lighter, because if we use both of them, we could light up a fire, and if someone passes by from above, he can observe us and maybe try to help us.
Okay, that's also a good option. And I think
And
we can
for
select
option aid kit, like to provide a first aid for those who are in emergency. Like my option
See,
would be
I don't think we would need a lighter. Instead of lighter, we could use a flare gun, because the thing you said about getting attention. So a flare gun will get 10 times bigger attention than a little fire in an island.
Yeah, we could do that, but like
But I think we should also include the first aid kit, because we have just entered the island after a crash, and of course, some of us will be injured. So we should include first aid kit also, according to me.
Okay, so yeah, first aid kit is definite. And I think option is between Swiss Army knife and NX. So what should we pick? X or Swiss Army knife?
yeah, I think an axe would be too much to handle, and a Swiss Army knife could work.
Yeah, that's
Because
why
where would we carry an axe? Like it is difficult to carry an axe everywhere in such a nervous situation. So I think a knife would work.
see, but if we need to cut branches and all, then an axe will be more useful. Like knife is just useful for protection now that I think of it. But axe is more useful.
Yeah, I think axe. Okay, yeah, continue.
So yeah, I think axe is more useful. See, instead of selecting 6 items, maybe we can eliminate 6 items which we don't need.
Don't want. Yeah, exactly. We can do that.
So firstly, we can eliminate fruits, sunblock, and waterproof bed sheet and bucket. Yeah, these 4 things we can eliminate easily.
Yeah.
Now the remaining 8.
But see, we can't survive by eating fishes only, right? Right. So a bag full of fruit and vegetable seeds would do, I think.
No, but see, we'll find plenty of options in, like, we are keeping fishing net also. So with the use of that, we can cook our own food. Right now, we need
Fishing
to
net
keep.
can be used in a multiple ways. Like if you want to catch any animal or something
Yeah,
to protect ourselves,
that's why
it
I'm
can
saying
be
that
used in a multiple.
instead of
Yeah.
fruits and seeds, we can use fishing net much more easily.
Okay,
So
so we are finalizing with the fishing net, I guess.
yeah, so we are down to 8, and we'll be down to 7 once we pick between knife and axe. So yeah, we have to pick between knife and axe and lighter and flare gun. Other than that, the 4 items are absolutely necessary. First aid kit, 2 liters of kerosene, fishing net, and 100 feet rope.
Okay, I think we should go with an axe,
Yeah,
like you said.
I also think we should go with an
And if
axe.
we are taking an axe, we can cut out flare gun, I guess.
Yeah, it's much useful to cut branches and even plants so that we can cover our shed and all. So I think we should keep an axe. And we can use axe also for our protection.
Yeah. So
Right.
So now between lighter and flare gun.
okay,
We can
uh,
eliminate
We
lighter.
can go with the lighter. We don't want a flare gun because we are picking up an axe, and we can go with the lighter. It would be useful
Wait,
in
I have
many.
another option.
yes. What is it?
Sorry, my net just cut off. So I was thinking that I was keeping rope just to tie things up. So instead of using rope, maybe we can use those bales and all that are hanging in the forest to tie things up. And instead of rope, we can keep lighter and flare gun together. So kerosene and lighter will be used to light a fire so that we can keep ourselves warm and cook stuff. And flare gun will be used to catch attention in case of an.
I think
Uh,
we don't even want a lighter because we'll be having stones over there. We can
no,
rub
no, no,
them
no.
in.
That's not.
No,
That's
we
never
cannot
used.
rely on stones and we cannot rely on the, like, we definitely need a rope, we can never uh, trust on what you were saying. Like, it can break and it will require a lot of effort. Instead, we can go with the rope, which is always
Okay.
a better option. So we cannot eliminate rope for sure.
See, but if we are keeping kerosene, then we need to keep lighter.
I think anything between lighter and the flare gun would work because
No, no, no. But if we use flare gun to light our kerosene, then it's of no use because it only has limited number of shots.
I think we don't need kerosene because we'll be having dry leaves and other things over there, which will be enough to light up a fire.
Yeah.
So we can eliminate kerosene.
Yeah, and to remove the kerosene part, we can use those fish oils when we'll catch fishes, no? So we can just their skin and all is useful to create the oily part to light things
okay,
up.
so I agree with what Lakshi said that we can find enough things there to light a fire. on. So I think we can remove kerosene and include both the lighter and the flare gun.
Flare gun. Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Toastmaster, Abhi, we have selected
Okay.
the things.
So can you repeat the 6 items?
Yeah, the 6 items are fishing net, 100 feet rope,
Okay.
lighter, axe, first aid kit, and flare gun.
All right. So you people seem to be crafty people, and if at all I am crashed in an island, I hope that I have you guys to help me escape. Right. So that was it for the game, guys. Kratika, over to you.
Yes. So while you were in the game, I would like to know your experience. Just in as concise way as possible. Tell what you felt. Were you satisfied with the result, or did you think you did your best? Over
Sorry,
to any of you, like.
sorry for disturbing. I actually have a doubt over here. Also,
Hmm.
like in this group discussion, whenever you conduct it for this inductions, what are you trying to test? Our creativity or the way we collaborate, or can you just enlighten me on that? Like,
Yeah.
Sure.
even though
So yeah, Abhishek, go on.
Yeah. So the basic gist is a little bit of both, right? Maybe when we give you more examples down the line, maybe that might give you a better understanding. And in case you aren't satisfied, you can ask the question towards the end. Okay, we'll give you a more detailed explanation. Is that okay?
yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So we'll come to that, Srinidhi. Just have a little more patience. We'll be there soon. So in this activity, I want to know from all of you what all are the things that you learned. What you found. This was one type of group discussion in itself. Did you find anything that you missed out on? Maybe you felt that you could have spoken something, but you did not get the chance to speak. Or maybe you thought when you started discussing, you realized that, okay, I forgot to ask that time, how much time I had to discuss for. Or you might have forgot that it was not about survival, it was about escaping from it. So maybe you would have thought of having a boat. Were you able to create a plan in the end? The task was not to just come up with the items of your each of your own, but was to come up with one item which is for your individual strength. So let's say if it is for Sarthak, if he thinks that he can carry heavy objects, then he would play by his strength and
You're muted.
am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kratika.
Yes. So yeah. So in case of Sarthak, let's say if he thinks that he can carry an X and he can use it really well, he will play by his strength and choose an X for himself. That was the task. Then you have to together choose, like, first choose each item for yourself. Once you have 6 items, one for each person, create a plan for escape, not survival. Right? So in this activity, you could have seen that this is very much similar. Acha, escapade was supposed to happen for all of you. You can't escape alone and let your group members die, right? So if you want to escape, you would want all of you to escape. So this entire setup is exactly how a group discussion is supposed to be. All of you, when you are put in a situation, would want to shine, would want to come out alive from a deserted island. But all of you cannot do it alone, simply cannot do it. So you have to all play by your strengths in any group discussion. You know what your strengths are, you should know. And then you have to come up with a plan in which entire group member come and finalize a plan, a solution, or a conclusion. So in any group discussion, that's the summary. This activity is the summary of entire group discussion. All of you have need to find your time to shine and need also to make the group shine at the end. All the group should come to a conclusion. Now this is about it. Now we will move to entering into a group discussion. Yes. So right when you enter into a group discussion, there will be a person who will be moderating. That moderator will provide you a topic. Once you get the topic, the first thing you're supposed to do is ask for clarification, if any. The person will also set some sort of ground rules. For example, when Abhishek mentioned a couple of things, he left the timing. However, none of you asked for the timing. You don't know for how much time were we supposed to talk or discuss. So this shows that you were either very excited to talk or nervous as to what you are supposed to talk. So you just said something. And in that hurry, you begin the discussion without clarifying the thing that needed clarification. So first thing, get the topic from the moderator, get the ground rules, clarify from your side. Once all the clarifications are done, the next part will be to, which is a question also, whether or not to introduce yourself in a GD. Generally in a GD, what they do is they give you the topic and ask each of you to introduce. Then all of you are supposed to introduce yourself and then you can plunge into the discussion. Or what you can do is they will leave it to you to do it. Now that is where you have to make the decision. First person speaking, it is suggested for you to introduce yourself. Keep a very short 1 minute introduction. It shouldn't be long about where you belong, what your father does, what your mother does. That is not required here. Very small description of what your name is, what your department is, and which college you are if you are sitting for a company. Very small intro. If you want to talk about your hobby, you can. Don't make it more than 1 minute. Time is important here. Now, there might be another possibility where someone has already moved on to discussing without introducing themselves. In that case, you will be the second person, and now you are in a dilemma whether or not I should introduce because the first person didn't introduce. In that case, what you can do is, now you have to think. If you want to go with the group and respect how the first person has gone, you can either introduce yourself, not introduce yourself, and let it go. And let the discussion go without introducing anyone. No one will introduce each other. And this is a common group decided among the group. All of you have decided no one will introduce. If you are introducing yourself, that will just show that you strayed away from the group. So at the end of the day, you have to decide whether or not in that situation you want to introduce or not based on what situation you are put in, on your better judgment. Moving on. Yes. Now the discussion, once you've introduced yourself, everything is set. Time for the discussion is here. Generally, when we look for online tips, we find that we should always start the discussion. Every time it is like, I should be the first one starting the discussion. I should be the one. However, the tips never ask you to start the discussion. They suggest you to try starting the discussion, which means if you know that you can drive the discussion in a right direction, then start the discussion. If you are not sure, then do not, and let the other person who is more sure of themselves do it. Now there are three ways in which what is important for a discussion is that it should have a direction. In the beginning, we said there is need for a conclusion to come out of any discussion, which means there should be a direction to reach someplace. There is always requirement of a path to which leads to a conclusion. So you should be the one directing. Your focus should be to give a direction to a group discussion. How can you do that? First, you can start the discussion. It is very easy to write on a blank slate. You can always write something and give a direction to it. But it should be relevant. So you can give the direction in the beginning itself. Now, in the middle of a discussion, you have something very new, some interesting point that will steer the direction to conclusion in the best possible way. That is another way of giving the direction. Third is, you're in a GD and suddenly all of the group mates are discussing something very tangential from the topic that was given to you. In that case, bring their attention back to the topic. That is another way of taking the GD in the right direction. So, three ways. First is start and give the direction. Second is steer in the right direction. Third is bring back to the right direction if the track is lost. Now, moving on to the counterpoint.
Yep. So when it comes to counterpoint, there are a couple of things to remember, right? The first and foremost thing to remember is never ever counter yourself. Now, what do I mean by that? let's say during the course of discussion, you mentioned that you're an environmentalist, right? So you do things environment friendly way. But later down the line, you accidentally let slip that you don't even recycle. Now, what does this mean? It means that you've countered your own point, right? So what that does is it nullifies all the points that you mentioned before. So I repeat, never ever counter yourself, right? The second thing that I like to mention under counterpoint is that it's okay to stay neutral. So there will be topics which might have two sides to an argument. For example, let's say if the topic is social media a boon or a bane, right? So there are two sides of the argument that you can fall under or choose, right? It's okay to stay neutral, right? It's okay to give supporting points or opposing points to both those sides. But keep in mind, whatever points that you've mentioned for supporting or opposing shouldn't contradict. Am I clear? So second important thing under counterpoint is it's okay to stay neutral as long as you don't as long as you don't contradict the points that you're making for each side of the argument. Now the third thing that I like to mention is what happens if someone else counters your point, right? So in group discussions, you may never know, right? There'll always be that one idiot who just wants to like counter everyone there, right? Who doesn't play by the rules, who doesn't want to stick to the group part of it. What do you do then? Let's say you put forward a point and that is not received well by him. So what now? Now what you do is you listen to his argument and see if it is valid or not. If his argument is valid, you accept it, say that, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Maybe I was misguided, right? So you're accepting that you're wrong. It is fine. Do that, right? Especially when the argument that he makes is valid. What happens if you don't think that the argument he made is valid? What do you do then? Now you shouldn't criticize him. You shouldn't have a Mexican standoff with him. Nothing, none of that, right? What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to defer it to the group. You're supposed to minimize the situation. Let's say he doesn't agree to you. What do you say? You say something along the lines of, okay, that is an interesting point. I wonder what the others think about this. Now you're respecting his point. You're not criticizing him. You're also standing up for yourself, and you're involving the group into the discussion part, right? So these 3 points are important when it comes to counterpoint. Now on to group or me.
This point is all about reiterating the purpose of a group discussion in itself. There will come a time when you will have to choose whether should I think of the group or should I think about myself. More so when you are going for a company where there is something at stake. Let's say you are sitting for a company group discussion and you know that only a couple of people from the group will pass out of this process and they will only be shortlisted. In that case, you will be in a hurry to make yourself shine. That time, calm down and think. Even if you try to act over smart, if you're not playing by the team, with the team, then that is a negative point in front of your name. So when Srinidhi asked the question, what do moderators look for? Certainly they look for confidence. They also look for your teamwork. That's why thinking of group is important. How will you make yourself shine then? Simple. You want to make yourself shine? Play by your strength and make it visible while you're stating your own point. In the way that you give chances to the other, how you are more accommodating, and how you counterpoint and resolve conflict in case, as you know, Toastmaster Abhishek has said that in case you don't know how to counter, how will you defer and resolve the conflict? Don't build it up more. Now over to blank slate.
Yep. So now comes the question. What if they give you a topic that you have no idea about, right? That you're absolutely a blank slate about, right? What do you do then? So if they ask about politics, right? I have literally zero clue about politics, even though I'm supposedly a responsible citizen voting and all. But yeah. Anyways, so what do I do then? What do you do? The first thing that you're supposed to do, remember this wherever you go. If you don't know what to speak, listen. Listen to the group. Listen to the points that are being put forward by each and every individual member there, right? and then make your thesis. Then build up on the points that they put forward with your own set of ideas that you may or you may not get, right? Listen to both sides in case there is a versus type topic, right, which has two sides of an argument. Listen to both sides of the argument and then put in your points that and make judgments and your own points, and that will sort of support or oppose the either side, right? Both of that works. Now comes after you put forward your point, right? You come to observe that there is someone else who has a lot to say, right? This is a general group discussion etiquette, but I'll mention it here. So there's someone who has a lot to say, but isn't getting the chance to talk. What do you do then? You ensure that his or her ideas are discussed as well, that he or she gets equal chance in putting forward their ideas and opinions and then be involved in the discussion. So if you're blank, remember this. What you can do is, if you see someone else who has some ideas but isn't given the chance, you can say, okay, Kratika, right? Okay, Kratika, I think what is your idea on this? Can you shed some light on your opinions on this issue? Okay? So when the moderator observes you doing that, he's looking at it from the perspective of an admin. You're controlling the way the group flows, right? And that is a positive point for you, right? The last thing that you're supposed to do when you have no idea what to talk about is summarize. Now, what do I mean by summarize? We will look at in the next slide.
Yes, so all the discussion has taken place, and now we are nearing the end. So there should be something that you would have found out from the entire discussion, each one of the group member. The question comes, the interviewer comes and the moderator comes and he asks you to summarize, or he might ask you to conclude. And I would like to know from any one of you, what is the difference between summary or conclusion and conclusion? Yeah, any one of you. Yes, go on.
Summary is more of like the gist of the entire the talk we have done. Conclusion is like the result of the topic, like what do you want to say at the end. But that's the main thing. That's the difference between summary and conclusion, I feel.
Exactly. So in case of summary, you take the points that were discussed. They may be opinion of other people, they may be fact. You state them in the most concise way. Generally, for summary or conclusion, in the last you are given 2 minutes, not more than that. In that way, you will have to summarize everything. So in summary, you give a gist, opinions of other that were discussed, but you cannot speak anything that was not discussed. However, in case of conclusion, you can finally join all the threads and present a final result that you thought came out of the discussion. In this case, there can be your own opinions which you haven't stated before in the discussion, but they should be of a concluding nature. It shouldn't be completely tangential point that you raised all of a sudden. It should be something that ties all the strands or the strings of the group discussion that took place. Now, it might also happen, these terms are generally taken synonymously. So it might also happen that your moderator himself or herself has confused between the two. So it is preferable when they say summarize, you take the midway. You also summarize everything, then add one-liner conclusion in the end. It might have your own opinion. So see, and if they pointedly ask you to only summarize, in that case summarize. If they pointedly ask you to only conclude, in that case conclude. And if they are saying simply, just can you summarize whatever happened? So, or if you are thinking that moderator might have confused the difference between the two terms, the best approach is to take the midway. Summarize also, conclude with one statement in the end. Keep your summary very concise. You need not make extremely long statements stating every single opinion with complete sentence structure with subject, verb and objects and everything. No, If you want to make small sentences with 3-4 words, that is best. Your point should get across. That is all. I'm sorry. Now, there are some more things that are apart from, like, the discussion is now over. Apart from these, there are more things that you will face when you are in an interview. So we have mentioned those here. When you enter into a GD, there are some etiquettes you have to follow. So keep your camera open. That makes you feel more welcoming. You have seen body languages, that body language session which took place in the morning. So keep smile on your face. That makes you feel more welcoming. People will take your point, consider you as confident, and your points suddenly will have more weight. Keep that. Don't sit slouched like this. Sit straight and be confident. Look into the camera, because when you look into the camera, the other person thinks that you're talking right in their eyes. This is for online. In offline, don't body block anyone. You should not sit by blocking someone else, or you shouldn't be having someone's back at you. Third thing is collision course. Now, it might so happen that you're in a discussion and somebody interrupted you, or you have a point and you are not getting a chance to speak, and everyone is speaking and they're moving on to the next point. What will you do? Any one of you?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, so the question is, you are Harsh. I will give the chance to you. I'll just repeat the question once again. So it might so happen in a group discussion that you have a point, but you're not getting the chance to speak it, because everyone is already discussing and they're not leaving the space for you to enter and place your point in between. Or you are afraid that you might interrupt someone if you speak at that moment. What will you do? You need to speak your point now. Otherwise the entire GD will go on the next topic, and you don't want that to happen. You want to say it right now. You're not just getting the chance to do it. What will you do? Harsh, yeah, raise the hand.
Yes, so this happened with me recently as well, and I tried the same technique. What we can do is, simply humbly actually raise our hand, or say, excuse me, that I have something to add more to this point, and something that might prove beneficial. That is a later thing, but presenting that there is already something on your mind and talking out is the main thing, and communicating and being not afraid to present your views. That is the thing that is required for having confidence in yourself. I think that would
Right.
be appreciated, and your opinion will have weightage in itself.
Perfect, Harsh. So as he said, we can raise our hand. We can ask people, interrupt in the middle, say, excuse me, I would like to place my point here. These are the ways to do it. Now, it might also happen that even though you raised your hand or you said, excuse me, somebody will override you. And now you are afraid, because you have read the GD etiquettes online, that you shouldn't be interrupted or interrupting someone. Then what will you do? Over to you all. You started speaking, somebody overrode you, and now you became silent. Your chance to speak is lost. Yeah, Harsh, go on.
I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but what you're asking has happened with me just recently. So, okay. So if my opinion, if I'm trying to tell something to the group, and if it has been overwritten, then what I can do is I could try. What I did actually was I tried to find the best possible solution to relate my opinion to the next discussion that is currently ongoing, and I try in the next the round of discussion in the next topic that is happening right now. I try to relate it, and I manage to if I manage to speak about it, I try to relate it with the previous opinion of mine. I mean, the opinion related to the previous topic, and simultaneously add both of them together so that it gives them a collective output.
Perfect. You can always do this. You can always state your opinion later and tell them that this connected to the point that was raised earlier. Now, I will also tell you what you can do in that moment if the situation happened. And it happened with me a lot. And I had a lot of problem in placing my opinion when I wanted to do that. So 3 things might happen. You and someone else started talking simultaneously. In that case, you can keep going. The other person will stop and then say that I'm really sorry to. You can say that that I'm really sorry to interrupt. I will hand it over back to you once I have made my point. This way, you are respecting the other person, giving them the chance to speak once you have spoken, and you will be able to get the chance to speak your point on the right time that you wanted to do. Second thing that might happen, that someone else started speaking before you and now you did not get the chance. That time you should step back. You cannot override other person when they have already started speaking. That is interrupting. In that case, wait for your chance to come and then find that little opening where you can step in before anyone else can. It is happening at a very millisecond type of time intervals. Third thing that might happen is that you started before and someone came and started after you. They interrupted you, they're not stopping. In that case, you need not stop. You can just say, take the name of the person and tell them that I will make my point and I will hand it over back to you. You don't have to say sorry also here because you started before them and they interrupted. So this is the way to go about it. Be very polite in stating these things because it might lead to some sort of conflict, and always avoid conflict in a group discussion. It doesn't paint either you or the group or the other person in a good light. Finally, this doubt comes a lot whether or not we should take names of the people who are present in the GD. So if I'm in a GD, should I call Harsh as Harsh, or should I call him that speaker number 1 made this point and I want to agree and disagree to it? There are 2 ways to do. The moderator, while introducing you, while setting the ground rule, they might give you numbers to each of you. If they give you number, then you can always address every speaker by numbers or whichever dummy names that they give you. If they haven't given you, then 2 things might happen. You want to raise a point to agree someone. In that case, always take their names because it feels very, you're appreciating someone else's point. And in that time, if you take their name, they will feel very warm and suddenly their opinion of you and your opinion also, their opinion of your opinion will also be painted in a good light. So this is one way. Now, if you're disagreeing with someone's opinion, the best way is to not take their name and state the point which you want to disagree with. Don't take the name. Say that regarding this point which was mentioned earlier, I would like to disagree. Once this is done, now I would like to give it back to Toastmaster Abhishek.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me, Kratika. So in the collision course, the third point, you did mention about how if 2 people started talking at the same time or you started first, they starting first. And so that was that, I understood. But then what happens if, you say, excuse me, and they still don't stop? What happens then? I feel like.
In that case, you should stop. Because if they are not stopping, in that case, they have already ruined their own image in front of moderator. So you wouldn't want to be mixed in that lot now. Step aside. Let them speak to the content of their heart. And then whenever you get the chance, next time you speak. And hold no grudges or hard feelings about it. Because at the end of the day, moderator has already noticed what is going on.
Understood. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yes, Abhishek.
So, any other doubts until now, or can we move on to the next session? Okay. So, what is going to happen right now is a hands-on session where 6 of you will be coming forward, and you're going to have a proper group discussion. Now, we'll be giving you the topic, right? And what we want you to do is try to implement all of the stuff that we've been teaching till now, and try and showcase how the best version that you can be in a group discussion, right? For that, can I have 6 volunteers? Preferably people who haven't been part of the first one. Okay, so Srinidhi, Ria, Ankit, 3 volunteers. 3 more.
We have Bhavika.
Yeah, Bhavika. 2 more.
Shall I volunteer again?
Okay, yeah, sure. What is your name?
Sure,
Sorry.
go on.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, I didn't get her the name. Who talked now?
Yeah, I said thank you.
No. Like, what is your name? Sorry, Lakshmi, is it? So,
Lakshi, yeah.
Lakshi. Okay, cool. So Lakshi will be the 5th, and we need 1 more, right? Who wants to volunteer? Now it's okay if the people from first thing also come. It's fine. We'll have a mixed.
Okay, I'll also join.
Okay, fine. Sarthak. So you'll be the 6 of you will be having a group discussion right now, right? The time for that is 15 minutes, and how it'll work is after we give you the topic, we won't interrupt you. You guys will have your discussion, and once that discussion is over, what we'll be doing is Kratika and I, and even the others, if the audience members, if they want to give in their inputs, we'll try and dissect the group discussion and see what are all your strengths and what are all things you can improve on. Is that cool?
Yeah.
I have
So
a doubt.
okay, yes, go ahead, ask your. Go ahead.
Yeah, the conclusion or the summary part is included within 15 minutes, or you will give an extra 2 minutes?
So ideally it will be included in the 15 minutes, but when we feel like you're about to reach a conclusion, we'll step in and ask for your summary or your conclusion. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. So Kratika, you can give them the topic and then we can just observe.
Yes,
Yeah.
the topic for all of you is, should values change? I will repeat, the topic is, should values change?
So you can make note of the topic. You can use you can just go ahead. Yeah.
Now the floor is open for all of you to start the discussion.
Hi, I'm Ria, and and since the question that arises is, should values change? I believe that since time moves forward, water flows forward, so should values, because values are something that are intricate and inside humans, and something that makes humans human. As society connects together and moves forward, we need not just personal but also social values to move forward with time, so that we can adjust to what's coming forward, and we can adjust the society so as to the new ideas that come forward.
Hello, Ria. I'm Bhavika, and I guess at first I am just literally, if the values we are talking about is social values or some other kind of values. Um,
I think values can be personal, they can be social, they can also be emotional values. The way you perceive people,
yeah.
the way people perceive you is one of the biggest things that I think it's something that makes people wake up at 3 a.m. and wonder,
So
what am I doing with my life, because values are not just about how you behave, it's about how you're perceived, how like how you're gonna behave in future also is also affected by the values that you display right now. And So I believe that since there are so many new ideas that keep coming forward, we move forward with technology. There are so many things we haven't discovered as a society. And let's just take an instance here, LGBTQIA. A lot of people don't accept them because they consider that they hamper their values. Like the value that marriage is between men and women, or love can only happen between men and women. I personally don't agree with that because love can take any forms, but that's just an instance. So somebody's values could be, I don't believe in this concept, and somebody's values could be, I respect this concept, while somebody might actually have the value that I am this concept. So value,
Yeah, if and okay, should I go?
please
Even
do.
I have a point to make.
Mm.
Like, for example, like most of the areas we Indians flourish a lot, and most of them give credit to the value system which they have taught. So I really think that most of our Indian values should be kept throughout, because all of them are very good. For example, like respecting elders, the most basic things, or having consistent hard work, or these values which we have been taught by our ancestors, or the normal daily life way we have to progress. Each and everything have made wonderful people. So, and most of them give credit to their values which they have been taught. So I
Yeah.
guess progression in technology is, yes, that's what we do adapt it, but that is also accepted in the values we have taught. So those values are really important, especially in our Indian culture. That's what I
Yeah.
feel. So
And I
Bhavika,
want to
you can
add
continue.
like into Srinidhi, what Srinidhi said. Can I continue?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so actually, I just totally agree with Srinidhi. Actually, I also want to add like sometimes value define a person. A person can be defined like what value they have. A totally different person have different values, and if we just totally change the values and make them change their values, a person can be changed. Sometimes, in some cases, values are needed to be changed. For example, we can actually find like just Ria said, some values are actually needed to be changed, but some values, like Srinidhi said, shouldn't be changed. So we can actually take it like that, some values to be changed and some values to be not changed. So what does other think about, like what standpoint do you think we should take to be changed or to be not changing the value?
Okay, Sarthak, can I add a
Yeah.
point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think that even if a person changes his social values, or she is determined by his personal values. And I think personal values of a person never changes. The personal value of a person, what is in the start of his life, remains till the end of his life. And he is determined by that only. And one other thing that I think Ria said about Indian values. So I respect your point, but I don't completely believe in Indian values, because Indian values have taught us that never to argue with an elder. But if you think that you are somewhat correct in your position and they have already said something that you have to follow, and you can't argue with them, so then the ultimate result is loss for both of them. They want better of you, but you cannot achieve better for yourself. So there itself is a loss. So there are some more Indian values like that, which I think might have been worked in the past, but cannot work in present or future.
Yeah, I would like to add on a point over here. I'm Lakshi from Architecture Department. And yeah, I do agree that values should change. Sometimes we should stick on to the age-old values like respecting the elders. Keeping that in mind, and also technological development, of course, we have to change our values according to the fast-moving world around us. Like we can't stay with the same values which we had 100 or 200 years ago, but respecting and all those personal values are the Indian values which we call it as Ria said. We have to stick on to it. It gives a kind of bonding between the family members and also the people in the society.
We can actually, I also think values should be changed as since we were the kids, we were taught some good values. And these good values are something that even the world technology change and word from something or somewhere to reaches to somewhere that shouldn't be changed at all, as there are some basics value which we have learned, but the other values which actually should change as we develop in the technology. So I totally stand with the point of others with that value should change as we develop in our technology and all.
Yeah, so
What
people
I believe is that
agree that basic values of Indian values of respecting and showing love to each and every creature should be our basic value.
what I feel is that the lifestyle which we go through the modernization that can be changed, but the basis of what we work, like the values, is really should not be changed. What I feel, like the perspectives can change, but not the values. The values actually help us to go and teach us between what is right and what is wrong. Due to lack of values, we can see that you can see most of the Western countries struggling with their health problems. For example, it's just an example, in very early ages. That's because they don't have a fixed time of waking up. They work, they go do all night outs, and eat a lot of non-good food. As I can say, it's just an example of the majority of the West we have, which we have a perspective. But I'm just saying that, like, the basis of those good values which we take from our elders should be there. The lifestyle and the perspectives can change accordingly. But what I really think is that for differentiating between what's right and wrong during these tough times, you need to actually have good values which we cannot change. What do you
Yeah,
guys
I totally agree with you, Srinidhi. Like, as you said, like the personal values or the basic values should be there, keeping in mind the other changes that are happening within a society. I like the comparison you did with the Western world and Indian world. Like, that's really true. The Indian values, which they have taught us to raise up early and eat before 6, and all those food habits and whatever habits and values they have taught us is very good for our health, and it's good for not only our body health but also for the mental health. We could see that there is an increasing cases in the mental health all over the world, and that's because there have been change in values, especially in the Western countries. We could see there are many mental health cases coming up, and I think values plays a major role over there.
To like, if I have to add a point, I don't think so. I think sometimes these values of what our elders gave us, bound our personal perspectives and our personal preferences too. Like you just said an example, like of waking up early, sleeping late, and sometimes like that. Everyone have different preference of everything. Everyone has different comfortability with everything, and sometimes these values come and bound us our own perspectives, our own preference, and our own comfortability level to these things. So sometimes values I don't think should be followed, and should I think they should be changed. But as I said, basics values should be there, and of course a person have their personal values and their personal preferences. So I guess they would just follow the values they think that would be better than. Yeah, Priya, can you go on?
Thank you. Thank you for the point. Take Bhavika and Srinidhi's point right now, and I'll just twist it just a bit because I agree with what you said that Indian values are absolutely, immaculate. They teach us how to live well. However, just to add on to that, there are not just Indian values. Right now, we live in the age of globalization. And globalization, I promise I'll connect this point to values. Globalization has brought this world together and closer. When we come closer and a lot of opinions mix with one another, I feel that there comes a point where one value starts conflicting another, which leads to a lot of wars and a lot of mutual conflicts, which is not something that our original values taught us. So when there's such an anomaly in lots of values, for instance, uh, let me give an example. Have you heard of a Korean fleet accident? Basically, in the year in 2010s, I'm not sure exactly which year, but a fleet, a ship, a cargo basically carrying students and elders. There were people who were going on a trip. The cargo actually bursted and they were all in the water. And the elders told the kids to stay on board, and nobody came over there to help them. The captain ran off, the elders ran off, and the entire fleet, the entire crew, the people, especially the kids, they all drowned. All because the elders told them to stay there and wait. It's true that we should respect our elders, it's true that we should listen to them, but there comes a saturation point where when personal opinion does not get through, I think that becomes problematic. So as we move forward, when there's a mix of opinions, we need to cater to everybody's values and find out a midway where we can live harmoniously. This is why I think that values should actually change with time. And this is why I said that values should change with moving technology, because technology is one of the biggest factors. It's not going away. Is he is to stay in 2021 and beyond. And with that, I like to just place my.
Yes. So 13 minutes
Okay,
are up.
so
13 minutes are up. So you guys can summarize and
yeah, so
whatever
actually
it is.
we can like summarize as we are just totally going out of time. So how about like that we all like agree in some points that values should change and some agrees in the point that basic values shouldn't change. So what do you all like want to say? Um,
Okay,
Ankit
so
and
maybe
Sarthak.
I'll start.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, basically that only. I think basic values should be changed, but on a personal level, a personal value of a person is totally independent of the society. It should be only dependent on that person. Like I completely agree with Bhavika and Ria on that point. A person's personality is enhanced on his personal values, not on the values enacted on him by society. And also, if there are conflicting values, then only a society can evolve. Like if there are same values on of every person, then a society cannot evolve through its time. So that's what I believe.
We can conclude finally is that some values with time should change, and the other ones, and those value which changes should have we can change through the logic and the reason applicable at that time, and there's few other basic values which default should be there will always be there. So with time few should change, and without at that few basic common sense few basic values should be there. That's all I think.
Okay.
What about
So now we'll once again, Ankit, I'll give you the chance to talk. So now we'll focus on the conclusion part. So Ankit, you were talking. You can maybe conclude it.
So I have listened to each and everyone's point thoroughly, and what I have come, what is the gist that I have got from all of your perspectives is that all of your like as we grow up, we learn certain values from our parents. They teach us some values, and as we evolve, we develop a mind of our own and thought of our own and our own judgment. And according to our judgment, we can think that what are the values that we are being taught are really are something that are going to help us in our later life and the changing world, and there are some values that just don't make sense as the world evolves. So accordingly we should omit some values, and some values that are uh, that are concurrent, that still works to the time, we should keep them in our heart and blood, and we should omit the values that we are not satisfied with. That is all. That is what I thought the
Okay.
discussion was going. That's all.
Thank you, Ankit. Fantastic. So
Yes.
the group discussion is officially over. Now it's time for dissection. Kratika, I'll give them my points, after which I think you can go ahead. So something that I observed in general is that all of you had your videos on, but it wasn't right from the start, correct? You guys eventually turned on your videos. So this point will come under the first impressions, right? Because you want the moderator to look at you as someone who is, feels very confident in yourself, or you should be someone who's welcoming, right? So that is one point that I noted down. Your videos were on, but it was turned on a bit late. Fine, right? And second thing that I'd like to mention is whatever points that you guys gave, you guys backed it up with examples from different fields, from different aspects, whatever it is, right? You guys backed up your points with examples, and that's really a good way to put forward your opinion. So good work on that. Now some individual comments I'd like to make. So Ria, I think you started, and you sort of gave the direction to the entire group discussion. So good job on that, right? And Bhavika, I observed every time that you talked, you were like, shall I go? And you want to add on to Srinidhi's point. And like she said, you were including the entire audience, and it was very polite and proper etiquette you maintained throughout the group discussion. So good job on that. And Lakshi, you talked after a bit of time, but you remembered to introduce yourself. So I want to commend you on that, right? And also when there was a conflict or some two people talking at the same time, you let the other person go ahead, after which you put forward your point. So I would like to comment on that, right? And Sarthak, you brought up the point of how you respect another. Your exact words were something along the lines of, I respect your points but don't agree to this particular thing, right? So that is a good way to sort of disagree with a person, and I like that you used that before you stated what your thought process was. Good. And Ankit, you had to conclude, and your conclusion involved majority of what the group talked about, and you put forward your own conclusion as well. So good work on that. And yeah, I think that's pretty much as far as the and Srinidhi, your examples were good. Okay, in general, the quality of points was good. So yeah, that's it from my side. Kratika, over to you.
Yes. So I also observed a couple of points, and I will make it short. Srinidhi and Lakshi, both of your body posture was really good. However, Lakshi was looking, up a lot of time. Try to look in the camera or on the screen. That is better. Similarly, here I noticed that Ria, when she mentioned her last point in the end, she lacked a little bit of clarity. However, the point was amazing. The example that she gave of the Korean fleet was a great example. However, while stating in the beginning, it lacked a little bit clarity. We need to work on the clarity aspect of it. Now, Bhavika, you have nice facial expressions and non-verbal cues that you give. However, I would suggest you that you need to work on your body posture. You become a bit too laid back, like, you sit like this at times and then you move like this. So these things are quite distracting for the, fellow group members and also for the moderator. So I'm not asking you to not move at all. Move whenever is required and don't seem too laid back, because I remember I was in one group discussion. There was one person who had good points, but the person was sitting like this and he was talking in this manner. It showed arrogance, and there might be several aspects. So make sure that you portray the most confident yet humble personality when you are in a group discussion. That will come partly from the how you place your point, but also from your body posture. Yes, Ria, go on. You have something to say?
I'm sorry about the last point that I made, but actually I'm outside right now, which made me a bit nervous because I'm talking with a lot of people watching me, so it's a bit awkward.
All right, it happens. I can totally understand. In online, everything is like this. However, you can keep a note of this. I can understand this once it happened. Yes, Lakshi, you have something to say?
Yeah, actually, I was looking up because I was seeing the video on the PC. My cam was connected through my mobile, and I was seeing the video through the PC, and that's the reason I was looking up. I wanted to know who was going to talk, and like we were giving some hand gestures, like who was going to talk next, and to look at that, I was seeing on the PC.
Yes, perfect. Now, Sarthak, with you, I noticed that you were more calculated as compared to the first icebreaker activity that we conducted. This time, however, I would suggest you to work a little bit more on your posture, body language. Your points were nice. Work on your posture and have some smile on your face. That's nice. Perfect. And now, Ankit, for you, it is one thing that you have to speak here. And I noticed in your entire group, you could have noticed that as soon as you near the end and nobody kept record of the time, Ankit didn't get the chance to speak. Except Bhavika, nobody mentioned the fact that let's give the chance to Ankit. So, and Bhavika, when she did, it was quite towards the end. So make sure that your fellow group members get the chance to speak. Anyone else who, I think Bhavika raised the point. Do you have anything to say?
Just I wanna like thank you for also like pointing my mistakes, and yeah, it was my mistake also. I will just like try my best to like cover it up. Thank you.
Internet connection got cut off. So can Abhishek Toastmaster can repeat my corrections? I actually didn't.
Yes, so I just noted that no, the first thing is you turning on the video, right? A bit late.
Yeah.
That was fine. The second thing is it's not a correction. I just like the way in which you put your points across, and the examples were unique and solid. And that's and sometimes I felt that maybe you could have given your teammates to talk. For example, let's say there was a time where I think 2 or 3 people were trying to talk, and you took the lead, which is good. And maybe you should have given the chance back to the 2 people who didn't get a chance to talk there. Do you understand?
Okay, yeah, sure.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, now we will move on to the next session and it will take some time. So over to Abhishek.
Yes. So, okay. So, does someone else have a doubt? I heard a voice.
Yes, I have a doubt.
Okay, yeah.
When I was trying to speak simultaneously, another person was trying to speak, and then I thought that if I would interrupt her, then it might sound rude. That might have a bad impact on you guys.
Okay, so what you should have done is you should have said, okay, you go ahead. After you finish your point, I will put forward my point. That is something you can do, right? That is polite, okay. And you're also showing that you have some point to say. Correct?
Okay.
Yeah, that is one thing that you can follow, that all of you can follow, I hope. Right? Any other doubts?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. So let's continue. That was as far as the GD is concerned, that was a session from us. Now we'll move on to the PIs and let's just get right into it. Kratika, over to you.
Yes, so in a PI, before we go for the interview in itself, there's a lot of preparatory work that is supposed to be done. And the most important of that is research. So there are a lot of things that you have to research. They are not limited to the ones that we are going to mention. The first thing is to know about the role of the company, role you are applying for. It may be in the club, company, or the program that you are applying for your higher education. Which university you are applying for, if it is for higher education, which company you are applying for, know everything about it, and which club you are applying for or team you are applying for, try to know everything about it. The sources can be their Instagram handles or their social media platforms. For companies, it may be their year-end report that is put on their website. Check their website and you will find those information. And for universities also, you can find information on their website. One most important source of any information is your seniors who are already into those clubs or in the company or already in the universities that you are applying for. Second thing, which is most important, is you should know your why. Know why you are applying for something. It is very important because the reason most of the time people are rejected out of, out of any club or out of any company is because they themselves don't understand why they are applying for it. So that is one thing you need to know. Third thing why people, like the other thing why people are generally rejected is that they don't fit into the company culture. So when you're answering questions, before that in the research, you need to know PVPs. PVPs means purpose, values, and principles of a company or a club or any organization for that matter. So you have to, while you're answering, you have to align your answers according to the company values, because when the company person, the interviewer, is going to ask any question, they will be targeting their own values or something related to their culture. They want to see whether you have the same thing. So you can get all these information on the company websites, or whichever, if it is universities or if it is a club, you can know from your seniors what is the culture of the club is. For interview structure, there are a lot of types, structures of the interview. It can be a panel interview where 4 or 5 interviewers are sitting and interviewing you alone. It can be a group interview where one or few interviewers are there, but there are many candidates who are being interviewed. It can be one-on-one interview. It can also be a stress interview. Now, stress interviews happen. So the reason for it is to put you in the worst possible situation and then see how you tackle it. I'll give up an example about it later. Now for types of question, over to Toastmaster Abhishek.
Yep. So thank you, Kratika. Now we'll look at what types of questions and research has got to do with that, right? So one thing that you'll find that is common, whether it comes to companies or clubs or fests, whatever interviews, right, is that you'll find that in the interview, there will be a certain pattern of questions or line of questioning that is followed, right? Now, it is your job to research what kind of questions they generally ask, right? While the questions may not repeat, you'll have a better idea as to, okay, these are the types of questions that they can ask, right? For example, let's take the company Uber, right? The cab app company, right? You'll find that in most of their interviews, you'll come across graph data structure related questions, right? So when you're applying for the company and you're going for the interview, expect graph related questions, right? If you want me to give another example, let's take the events team for any particular fest, right? So what are they looking for? They're looking for their members to be able to have the ability to form their own events, right? To ideate, to come up with the structure, the rules. So what their line of questioning, their pattern of questioning will mirror something that will test your creativity skills or something like that, right? So the pattern or the when it comes to the types of question is important to research before you go home, right? Next, we move on to the interview type. So as far as type of interview is concerned, there are different types of interviews, right? You have technical interviews, you have HR interviews, behavioral interviews. We'll give you a brief approach, we'll give you a brief idea as to how to approach each of these kinds of interviews in some time. For now, let's just look at generally what interviewers look for in a particular interviewee, right? So you can classify that in the form of 3 C's: confidence, credibility, and clarity, right? So for confidence, I'll give you an example. So when I got into my company, right, through an interview, I'd asked my interviewer why he selected me, right? Because I felt that my technical skill, while not bad, I felt that it could have been better when I compared it with other people who had applied, right? And he told me this, that he had taken 6 people's interviews before me, but I was the only one who had confidence in myself. Therefore, he had confidence that I would do well in the company. You get it? So key point is have confidence. Be like Captain America after he gets the super soldier serum, not before he does. Right? Yeah. So we move on to the second C, which is credibility. So what does credibility mean? Credibility means how trustworthy you are as a candidate, as a potential candidate for the company or for the club. Let me give an example, right? Let's say in your resume that you've put that you've done a project on machine learning, right? And if the interviewer looks at your resume and he asks you, what algorithm have you used for this particular project? And then you just don't know the answer for that. You just give him a blank stare. Then you lose all your credibility immediately there. Because just you not answering this question devalues your entire resume, because the interviewer will be thinking, okay, he doesn't know the answer for what he himself did. How do I trust that the rest of this resume, right? Whatever happens, however good the rest of the interview goes, it doesn't matter. You're out then and there, right? That according to him. So be credible, right? Whatever little talents that you have, whatever little skill that you have to show it with proper backing up in terms of credibility, right? Be sure in whatever you're showing the interviewer. Now, the third C is clarity, right? So clarity involves both clarity itself and conciseness in nature, right? Because when the interviewer asks you a question, he wants the shortest, like he wants you to give the answer in the shortest way possible and the quickest way possible, and give it as clear as possible. Because when you spend like 20 minutes explaining why the square root of 16 is 4, then he's not going to listen to you, and you want the interviewer to listen to you in a PI, right? So yes, be clear and be concise. Now we'll move on to the next part, which is what happens when when you walk in. Kratika.
Yes. So when you walk into an interview, the first thing is to assess the environment. So I remember this was one stress interview that was taken for me, and it was the final round of a company interview. And as soon as I entered, I was alone in my room. Every window was soundproofed and it was locked. Everything was locked. There was no sound. And as soon as I turned on my mic, the interviewer said, "There is a lot of background noise. I can't hear a thing." And I knew that there was no sound. So this question was something that made me think, is he doing it on purpose to test me? How will I react towards it? So in that case, I asked him, like, I did some changes here and there, and then I asked him, is it okay now? And he said it is okay. So this was one way in which I understood that this interview is going to be very serious. In the same interview, the person who was interviewing me was sitting laid back on the couch like this, and he was smiling sarcastically, as if he was judging everything that I was doing. And I was very nervous. What I think now, what I should have done, I should have understood that this was being done as a part of the stress interview, and I should have reacted calmly, which I couldn't do. It was my first interview. So you will learn these things slowly as you go into it. Try to assess the environment. Don't be afraid of what he's doing, or did I do something wrong? That's why the person is reacting to me. Try to be as calm as possible by assessing the environment. Then these are the non-verbal things. There are some verbal things as well, where for example, the first word uttered. If I walk into an interview and the interviewer asks me, "Hey, what's up?" You know that this interview is going to be semi-formal, or let's say informal. So you can give your answers in the same manner. If you enter into an interview and someone say, "Welcome, good evening to you," in that case, you will know from the first instance itself, it is going to be comparatively more formal. Now we have first impressions. Now, for that, I would like to give it to Toastmaster Abhishek.
Yes. So
Excuse me.
before we move on, right? I have one more. Sorry. Sorry, what?
Hi, Harsh. I have a query from what Toastmaster Kratika just explained. May I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. So you just explained that in one of your first interview, that there was this interviewer who was laid back on the couch, and he was having a sarcastic smile on his face, right? So I first interpreted it as a mockery, maybe that the interviewer was trying to test how you react, and you just mentioned that you should have reacted calmly. Now that you think of it, what does calm reaction, in your opinion, mean? I want to know what all components does it include. Could you please elaborate on it?
Yeah, that's a very fine question to ask, first of all. Now, by calm, I mean is to patient and try to understand why this was done. To be honest, when I later reflected long time after the interview, I understood that was the reason why he did it. Because in the middle of the interview also, he stopped me in the middle of my answer and said, can you be quick enough? Can you be a little more quick so that we can wind it up quickly? So, these are the components of stress interview. So when you try to understand, you will be calm. If you are in a hurry, then you will want to say something to cover up the awkwardness or cover up something that you have done. Be calm. And in this case, whichever way he's sitting, you can't ask him to sit straight because you want it. He won't do it for you. You can't even ask him to not smile sarcastically. So live with it. But live with it with patience. Like, try to like just smile and as if he is just sitting the same way that you think that he should be sitting. So you can, the bottom line is that you can regulate the factors which relieve you. You can't ask the other person to be the way you want them to be. So you can't ask them to be act the way you want. So you can make changes to yourself freely. Yes, go on.
Yeah, I have a doubt. Like you said that it should be like crisp and short. Right? So if you don't know any answer to it, you tend to actually elongate it and mix it up. So what do you give for suggestions that if you don't know any answer and you have to answer it crisply?
I will mention that in the next slide. I'll cover that up. So your question is, what do you do when you don't know an answer, and I hope that whatever I say covers what your question. If it doesn't, you can ask me in the end. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Just remember to ask me so that I don't forget. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, any other questions? Okay. So
Yes, you have one more.
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Extension of the same question, the previous question that I asked.
Okay.
Right now, suppose we are in an interview with you, and you are the experienced one, and we are the amateur ones, and you ask us a quick question, and we are in a panic mode. What are your tips for us to maintain composure during that situation?
Okay. So can we address this towards the end? We'll talk about composure
All right,
part, clarity, and I mean all of that towards the end. We'll focus on how you would answer, right? And then we'll focus on how you should be mentally prepared. Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay.
that works well.
Fine. Okay. Cool. So now I'll move on. If there aren't any more questions, I'll move on to my part. Okay. So do you guys remember that I mentioned in my interview, the interviewer told me that I was very confident and blah blah blah, right? It's because of the first 2 points. It's because I assessed the environment and looked at looked at my interviews and made my first impression on how the PI was gonna be. Right. So when I logged on, I saw 2 sort of uncles, sitting and just chilling, right? And just at that moment, a smile lit up on my face because I knew that I would be able to sell myself very, very easily to these guys. That they would be impressed just based off of like the way I talk or the way I answer questions, right? So that was that was what I did when I assessed the environment and first impression, right? I used it to my advantage to be a bit more calm, composed, and collected. Okay. Yes. So now we'll move on to the introduction part, right? For this, I would like 2 of you to come up and introduce yourselves, how you would introduce yourselves in an actual PI. Can we have 2 volunteers? Just how you would, introduce yourself. Anybody? Okay, Srinidhi, you can go ahead first. How will you introduce yourself in an interview?
Okay, just my internet connection is back. Can I just speak right now, or should I switch on the video?
It's okay. You don't have to turn on a video. No worries. Just you are aware of what you're supposed to, right? You're supposed to introduce yourself the way you would in an actual interview. Okay, go ahead.
Is it like just a common interview, or is it some subject specific? Because
let's say it's so what department are you from?
Instrumentation.
Okay, let's say it's a core related interview. How would you interview? Like, how would you introduce yourself?
Okay. Good evening. Good evening. I'm Srinidhi. I'm from the Instrumentation and Control Department from NIT Trichy. I have done my minors in control systems and data structures. I would also my strengths include coding, uh, um, analog and digital electronics, etc. I'm also into debates, speeches, and and I play a lot of chess as well. And I'm sorry, one second. I'm really nervous right now. Yeah.
It's okay. If that was your introduction, it's okay. That's good enough. Right?
Yeah. Okay, that's my introduction.
Okay. So can we have another person try to introduce themselves? Chanchal, I saw you talking in the startup. Do you wanna give it a go? Or if someone else wants to do it, it's fine. Up to you guys. Someone I think unmuted and said they want to give it a try. I didn't hear.
Yeah, it was me.
Can you tell me your name? I can't see. Sarthak. Okay, sure, Sarthak. Go ahead. How would you introduce yourself?
Hi, respected seniors and my fellow friends. I'm Sarthak Jain. I'm from mechanical department, and some of my strengths are I am a very good team player. I know particular mechanical core things like Fusion and AutoCAD and all, and some of my hobbies include I love playing badminton and swimming, and also I love listening to slow and intimate music, and I love discussing about politics. And yeah, especially I love watching movies and web series.
Okay. So one thing that I've observed in common from both of your introductions is you guys mentioned your strengths in terms of the thing that you're applying for. That is, you mentioned AutoCAD, she mentioned coding skills, right? And so on. And after that, you had mentioned your hobbies. Now tell me, would it be better if you switch those two? Do you think that hobbies coming first
Yeah,
would
when I
make better
started
sense?
stating hobbies, no, then I thought that maybe it would be better if I increase the level gradually, like from my name to hobbies and then to my strengths.
Okay. So yeah, so that is a better way, in my opinion, to approach your introduction, right? So the reason I will tell you in some time. So before that, Kratika, I believe you can show us how you would introduce yourself.
Yes. So, am I audible first of all?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So, intros, we will come to how to give an intro. I will give my intro, which is a bit formal because this is my intro for the companies that I sat for. My name is Kratika Chaturvedi, and I am a final year undergraduate student of NIT Trichy. My major is in mechanical engineering and minor in management studies. It is while taking the courses like finance management, human resource management, principles of management that I found my interest in this field. It further solidified when I worked as a product management intern in a B2B startup for 3 months. There, I worked in coordination with the marketing and technical team to uh, to plan and execute new service-based service strategies. Now, I was delighted to see that ExxonMobil's chemical business role, in particular global planning, will allow me to work with cross-functional stakeholders. And that is why I applied for this role. Apart from academia, I like reading books. Um, all genres are acceptable except self-help book. I love creative writing and I'm into public speaking as well. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to have a great interaction. Over to Abhishek.
Yes. So in this introduction, what Kratika did is similar. She followed a similar format to your introduction, right? So she had the hobbies part towards the end, right? Both are acceptable, and I'll tell you why though in some time. But that was how you introduce yourself. That is how you introduce yourself. That was a perfect introduction. I hope you guys like heard it and paid attention to what she said, right? Towards the end, she had mentioned something, right? She had mentioned how she likes reading books as her hobbies, and then she mentioned except self-help books. Can one of you tell me why she mentioned this?
She wanted to show that she's capable of doing herself. She doesn't need help from any other things, and she's confident enough to do the
Yes,
work.
it displays that attribute, correct? Any other attribute that the person can take away, or like what
She
what
wanted to
will
clarify her personality,
okay?
what she actually likes and does not like.
Yes, yes. So not only does it showcase these traits, right? It also gives the interviewer a segue into the next question. What do you think his next question will be, the interviewer?
Why
If
not self-help books?
exactly, exactly, right? So in my introduction, towards the end part, what I did was I mentioned instead of the reading books, I like playing video games. So I mentioned I like playing video games, which is why for my first project, I tried creating my own video game. What do you think his next question will be?
What type of video game?
What type of video game? What software did you use? How did you do it? So on. So what we are essentially doing here is we are trying to transition, or we're trying to give the person, the interviewer, a transition into the next question. Correct? Kratika, do you want to explain on transition?
Yes. Before I go into transition, I will like to add the structure of an introduction is something like you start with what you are at present, then you go to what you did in the past, and that should connect to what you are planning to do in the future. So in my introduction, I told what I am currently a final year undergraduate student, and then I said that in the past I studied some courses in the college, because of which my interest kindled into product management, and now I am looking forward to a role, global planning, which is related to product management. And then I mentioned my hobbies. So you go with present, then you go to past, connect the past with what you are planning to do in the future, bring the job role into that place, and then you mention your hobbies. Introduction done. Coming to transition. Yes. So what we generally, when we go to an interview, we generally think that the interviewer is the one leading the way. The truth is that interviewee always has the chance to lead an interview. How to do it? When you give any answer, the next question is going to come from your answer that you have given previously. So in a way, you are always leading the entire interview. And for every question's transition, that is one thing that will always happen. Whatever you say, if you say something stupid, the interviewer will catch on it, and then he will ask the same, or he or she will ask the same question based on that. If you say something extremely smart, he will like to talk about it. And if you are able to actually show your interest into something important, something that he is looking for, he would love it. And that is one positive point for you. Yes. Can we move on to the next slide?
Yeah. So now comes an interactive session answering questions 101, right? So the general type of questions that they ask in interviews, we've tried to divide it into 4 categories. So for each of these categories, we'll just explain in brief what they are and how you sort of approach in answering them. And then we can have you guys volunteer where we give in a question and we'll see how you guys answer. Does that work? All right. So we'll start off with case study. Right? So what is case study? Can somebody tell me that? What is a case study? Anyone? Okay. So case study in simple terms is a story, right? It's a story, or it's a list of facts. It's a description of a particular thing that had happened, right? Or something that's fictional. So usually the kind of case studies that you get in your interviews are that of a company which is facing a sort of crisis, or something that a company requires your help in, right? Something that they can do better. So how it works is you're expected to read through the case study thoroughly, formulate your own ideas on what the issue is, what the problem is, and maybe come up with your solution for that particular issue or problem, right? So for this, you can use strategies like SWOT analysis, that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. You can use this SWOT analysis to sort of classify different points that you have, different opinions that you've made of the case study, and then formulate your idea and then present it, right? So one tip that I have for you in case study is to think out loud. What I mean by this is, let's say we're dealing with an electrical company in the case study, right? It's an electrical company who is having a bit of a bad time because of like people aren't subscribing to it or whatever it is, right? So they give you the case study, and then they ask you for a solution. Now you can either spend 5 minutes thinking of the solution and then giving them the solution, or you can talk along as you reach the solution yourself. For example, in this case, how I would do it is, okay, so here we are dealing with an electrical company, and you're telling me that there is a bit of a bad phase, right? People are not subscribing to it. So what I think is possible is it's because of the high prices that we may charge. So why do we charge high prices? Sorry, yeah. So why do we charge high prices? Maybe because the cost price itself is a lot. So what can we do? Maybe we can have like a segment under us where we generate solar power, just to we can have that as a part of our entire company, and that way we can reduce the cost price and effectively the selling price. Now this is a solution, but it's not just a solution. You're showing them your thought process, the way you think, and showcasing your skill pretty much, right? This is how you would approach a case study question. Think out loud, right? This will also work in technical questions, but I'll come to that eventually. We'll move on to behavioral questions. Kratika, over to you.
Yes. So what are behavioral questions? These are the questions which we see in campus interviews, any interview for that matter, to check your personality, to see how your personality is and whether it fits in the club culture or the company culture or in the environment of the university you are applying for. So to test these, they will either ask you simple straightforward question. For example, what are your strengths and weaknesses? It's a very straightforward question. You will have to tell the strengths and weaknesses. They might ask this in a very smart way, which is to provide you a situation and then see how you tackled in the past. So they will say, what was the one time when you faced some challenge and how did you tackle it? This is the mentality behind this is, if they know how you reacted to some situation in the past, they will be able to predict how you will react to it in the future. So that is how the behavioral questions, these are what behavioral questions are. Now, these are generally, the answers to these questions are mostly story based. So if you are going to talk about the challenge that you've faced in the past, that is going to be some sort of a story. And whenever we go about talking a story, we end up becoming extremely, stretchy. The entire story will go on for very long. And we said that we should be concise. So there are some approaches to structure our answer. Now, and
I'm sorry,
and then
Kratika, your voice is cracking.
Kratika, I think there's an audio issue. Can you try talking again?
okay.
What is the last thing that you guys heard?
Is it?
Say? Yeah, can you talk now? I heard the word is it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So STAR plus S stands for situation, T stands for task that you encountered, and then how you approach the task. A stands for approach. R stands for what was the result that came out of it. Now, let's say this take this one example for the challenges. The situation will be that you were supposed to submit a group project. Your team was of 3 people. You were supposed to submit the project in 3 days. But you, when you analyze the project, you understand that you cannot finish it in 3 days. You need to have 4 days at least to finish it. The task here will be to finish the project that requires 4 days in 3 days. Approach, you will have to tell how you tackle this. Maybe you would have asked the instructor for more time, or you pushed on for extra hours, and how did you coordinate with your team to finally get the result. Now, result can be a success or a failure. You could have either succeeded in giving the let's say making the submission in 3 days, or you could not have done. Both of things you can mention. Acknowledging your failure is not wrong. It's totally fine. That is why I have added a plus. Now, the plus means that talk about the lessons that you learned. Because if it is failure, you will be able to tell, okay, I failed, I know. But now this time, from the next time, I'll make sure that this doesn't happen because I've learned these lessons. If you succeeded, still you would have learned some lessons. So tell those lessons and tell the company. So the company, the whoever is taking your interview for a campus interview will know that this person in future will not make the same mistake, or this person is reflective in nature, has reflected on the work that he or she has done, and now he or she will do it better the next time. Problem solution is a simple one. You have a problem, they will provide you a problem, they will ask a solution for it. And for me, I remember for one of the company interview, they asked me that they want all of the employees to come back to offline setup from online setup, and there are around 30 employees. You have to draft a plan for calling them back. To solve these kind of problems, you have to, the approach is CCAR, which means challenge. The second C is context, then the action that you will take, and what will be the result you are expecting out of it. This is CCAR approach. For technical, Abhishek.
Yep. So as far as technical is concerned, right, you either know the answer or you don't know the answer, right? So let's say that you do know the answer. How would you answer it? Suppose the interviewer asks you, what is the square root of 16? If you know the answer, you say 4, right? And then you mention, do you want me to explain how I derived at 4, right? So when you do that, you're giving the answer to him straight, clear, concise. Also, you're giving him the option of questioning you more, right? Whether so that he can check whether you actually understand how it is 4 and so on, right? So try to follow that method. For any technical question that they ask, you give them the answer that you know, and then tell them, ask them if they want to if they want an explanation or something like that, right? Now comes the question, what happens if you don't know the answer? So there are 2 subdivisions under this also. You don't know the answer, but you know the approximate approach, in finding the answer. Or second, you don't know the approach also. You have nothing. So for the first one, where you do know the approach, let me use the same example, right? Square root of 16. So if you don't know what the square root of 16 is, but you know how to find square root, you'll probably say to him something along the lines of, okay, so 16 is in the square root. So if I can express 16 in the form of square of a particular number, maybe the square root and square will get cancelled and I'll get the answer. See, right now you're not giving him the answer because you don't know, but you're giving him the way in which you can derive the answer so that he understands whatever it is you're thinking, that you know the method and you know the approach in finding the answer, right? So now comes what happens if you don't know anything, right? It's just completely blank. The best way to the best reply for that is just tell him that that you're not comfortable with this particular topic, that you don't know the answer to the question, so that he will move on, right? Because he doesn't want to stay within the realms of things you don't know. He would rather test your strengths. So say something along the lines of, I'm not comfortable with this topic, can you ask me something along the lines of that topic? So now you're admitting to him that you don't know the answer, but you're also doing it in a polite way, right? You're telling him that this is your strength and he can test you on this. And yeah, that is how you take, or that is how you approach the technical aspect for it, right? So we'll move on to the next part. Yes, now comes questions to the interviewer. Now the interview is over, right? So the first thing that the interviewer will ask you is, do you have any questions for me? So what do you do? Do you think that you should ask questions, or do you think that you should just say bye? You guys can unmute and say. Is it good?
I
Yes.
to say over here.
Sorry, you said yes, is it?
Go ahead, Harsh.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, I think that it's an absolute necessity to ask questions after the interview is done, because that would show that I'm particularly interested in knowing more. For example, if I ask the interviewer that something maybe that I missed out, or something maybe more that he wanted to ask me, but maybe because of the time constraint or anything, that would show him that I am interested in learning more, and I'm keen about knowing more about the company, or maybe this is what I'm inclined towards. So that would give them a good impression about me.
Yes, fantastic. Yes, that was a good answer. You have to ask a question. Okay. In fact, I would say ask two questions. Okay. And two questions which will sort of cover all the aspects of things that you can address. Right. Kratika, I believe you have the first question for us that you had asked in your interview. Do you want to share that?
Yes. So yes, certainly. So I remember for one of my interviews, I asked. So whenever you sit for a company, before the company actually starts their process, they come and explain about themselves, and that thing is called pre-placement talk. So whenever they come for it, you will make notes of things that they tell. And I noticed something about the structure of the company that I didn't understand. So there were three businesses and there were four operations. I didn't know that they were separate, or every business will have their own separate operations. And I knew that when I become the part, let's say if I become the part of the organization, I will need to understand this. So why not ask this question right after the interview? So as soon as the interview got over, I asked this question to them, and I referenced the fact that in the pre-placement talks you have mentioned about this. So I had a little doubt regarding the same, and I mentioned the problem that I was having. They answered me, one thing good that it will do is they will understand that you heard them when they talked about their company. And people like, this is a very subtle way of appreciating their efforts, because you listen to someone, that is the greatest appreciation you can give to someone who's speaking. So this was one thing. Abhishek.
Yeah. So a question that I asked in my interview is, first of all, I asked the person how long he had been working in the company, and then I followed it up with by asking him to narrate an incident, or basically asking him about his favorite project, or the project from which he learned the most from, right, as a developer, or as a software developer in my case. So when I ask him this question, what am I doing? I'm showing that I am curious to, and I can't wait to start working in that company, but I'm also adding in a personal touch of asking him about his experience. You see, so these kind of questions cover up almost all the aspects that the interviewer would feel comfortable answering and would probably expect you to ask, right? So try to ask questions that are in relation to this, something that's personal, something that's related to what you'll be doing. Yeah. So moving on to parting awkwardness. For that, Kratika, over to you.
Yes. So if you have watched any of the romantic movies, the dialogue that always pops up is that parting is very, very difficult. And it is true in case of interview as well, because parting is awkward here. And you don't want your entire impression that you built upon throughout the interview to be ruined just because you couldn't end the conversation well. Now you are looking at the screen, the person is also staring at you, and you don't know whether you should leave or not. What you can do here is, they will say that your interview is over, thank you for your time. You can also say, I had a great interaction, I had a nice time interacting with all of you, thank you, and I will take my leave now. Or you need not say you will take your leave, they will pause, and that is the time you should give. That is how we should part in the most confident way. The next thing, journaling is what I do after every interview, and this is just my personal experience. If you want to take it ahead, if you want to do it, you can, because whenever I go for interview, I failed for many interviews, I'll be very honest. And one thing that I learned from it, all my interviews, is that I started understanding more about myself, about my past experiences and what I learned from them. And it helped me to look out for those experiences which I did in future, something that I did in future, and what I learned from them. So it made me more reflective. However, if I don't write it down anywhere, I will forget it. So in future, if I'm sitting for an interview, I will not even remember what experience I had. For example, if I'm speaking for star plus for behavioral question, they will ask me for situations in which I would have done something. So for that, I need to remember the situations. So after every interview, I just write down simply the questions that were asked, the difficulties that I faced, and things that I thought were my mistakes. So this is something that I do after every interview, and I would highly recommend you to do it. You can or cannot do it, it's totally up to you. Can we move on to the next slide, Abhishek? Yes. Now we've come to the end of the session. Thank you for being with us for this session, for all the previous 3 sessions that we've had. And I hope you had a great time. If you have any question, we'll wait for you. But before that, over to the chairs for them to say their concluding remarks.
Thank you, Toastmaster Kratika, and thank you, Toastmaster Abhishek, for such a wonderful session. I hope the participants had a lot of takeaways from this session, and because it is very important to them, because they'll be attending a lot of PIs and GDs in the future. And I'm happy that Toastmaster Kratika and Toastmaster Abhishek, 2 very knowledgeable Toastmasters, have shared their knowledge with all of you. And speaking of the inductions, we'll be starting our induction soon. So to get updates regarding the inductions, please do follow our Instagram, Toastmasters and NITT Instagram page. And to everyone who's in the WhatsApp group, please don't leave the WhatsApp group right now. We'll be using the WhatsApp group to announce another special event. So please stay tuned for that. And I will also be, along with the feedback form, I'll also be releasing a testimonial form where if you feel that you have enjoyed a lot in the session, we'll be asking for your testimonials. And these testimonials will be posted in the the club's annual newsletter. So yeah, that has my concluding remarks. And do you guys have anything to add on?
Yes. So due to lack of time, we had skipped the interactive session when it comes to the answering question part. So we have with us around 6 to 7 questions that they generally ask in HR or interviews, company interviews, right? So if you guys want to give it a try, we are here for it, right? If you guys want to give it a try and we can dissect it, we'll do the same format that we did for GD. So if any of you are up, feel free to volunteer.
Also, if you have any other question, you can ask right now. We have skipped some of the questions you've asked in the middle of the session for the sake of time. So please, we are sitting here only to listen to you now.
One thing, will you be sharing this PPTs in the group?
We can, yeah. If you want us to share it, we'll share it. But I mentioned in the start, there might not be a lot of like words or content in the PPT. So we'll share the PPT. Maybe you can take a look at recording simultaneously to sort of correlate.
No, the PPT will create a gist in the mind. No.
Okay,
we have seen the lecture, attended the lecture, so that PPT only will
help you remember it. I get that. Yeah. So we'll share it anyways. I'm just saying, for those of you, if you want to go back to the recording and watch it, feel free to do that. Yeah. Any other questions or something else you guys want to ask?
Toastmaster Abhishek, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Yes. So in the first session that we had with Toastmaster Nida and Toastmaster Harshida, I remember.
Yeah.
We were talking about inductions and PIs at that time, and it's the same question I am asking again today.
Okay.
So we'll be having our inductions for the club and our PIs as well soon, right?
Correct. Yes. If you guys want a timeline, roughly in another 15 days, plus or minus 5 days.
All right.
Does that help you? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. My question is a little different actually.
Okay.
Any suggestions, since you are helping us out during the session only, and this is a PI session, any suggestions or tips maybe for getting inducted and getting admitted into the club?
Okay, so have a strong reason as to why you want to join our club, right? Because when we come across, like say, hundreds of you guys trying to apply for our club, we'll have to filter from those hundreds and pick the few people who we feel will fit in the club the best, right? So for that, an important reason is why you guys want to be part of us. So have a proper answer with regards to that. And second, just be yourself, right? I think Kratika, like we had discussed this when we were preparing for the session, right? So there will be certain interviewers, like certain clubs, certain companies that you just like, you might fail and not get in or whatever it is, right? So that's where the part of the culture comes in, right? Maybe like I think Kratika, you had a example also, the music group. Do you want to share
Yes.
it with us?
So yes. So basically, what happened in my first year, I was extremely enthusiastic. Okay, and I wanted to join. I applied for a lot of club and failed to get into a lot too. So in these, one of these, whims, I applied for music group, went for their interview, and I tried to do with it in whichever way I could, but I didn't have any why for me, and I realized later that I couldn't have fit into their culture, and I lacked also in terms of skills. So first thing, I didn't have the why. I didn't know why I wanted to be the part of it, except for the fact that I like bathroom singing, maybe. So that is not a solid reason. Later, after getting rejected, now I'm part of 3 teams. Like one is Toastmaster, another is Feeds, and one is CPT, like Content of Pragyan team. So I'm part of them, and I'm sure that I'm part of it because of who I am, and because their culture aligns with my own values and everything. So if you don't get into a club or something, the reason might be because you wouldn't have been able to, your values and all, maybe your personality doesn't align with their culture, and there's nothing wrong in it. You are good in yourself. So that is one thing. So don't get disheartened by the rejections, I would say. I mean, I've had lot in my time in terms of club. So that is one thing. And in terms of what you can do to get into our club, I would say we have given enough tips so far. Research is the most important thing. And we have given you how to do the research. So now it is up to you to do it. You can always reach out to the seniors who you know, who will be able to tell you about the club. There is one more thing. Whenever you reach out to people to ask their advice, always take their advice with a pinch of salt. You will meet all kind of people who have had their good or bad experiences with different kinds of clubs. So you should be the better. If someone says that this club is amazing, try to know from them what makes them think that it is so good. And if you agree with them, or if you think that the reason is reasonable, then only take it as a fact that this club is good. If someone says that this club is really bad, I don't like it, then ask them, why did you not like it? And if you think that reason is reasonable, and it is not a very personal to him type of a reason, it applies to you as well, you can also step back and not apply. So this is finally on your better judgment to do. The tips and all we have already given to you. They are everywhere. You just have to use them right.
So I feel like we've given like a general tips for in all clubs, right? Interviews and companies as well. Yeah, it's about now you have the knowledge on how to do it. It's about it's a question of whether you will do it or not, right? So be chill, be confident, and just I don't know, have fun giving the interview, right? And learning from it. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions you guys have for us?
So I had this one question. I heard somewhere that say the questions in the end to the interviewers, right?
Yeah.
So they in the end, they also ask you why we shouldn't hire you, right?
Correct.
There are questions that they do that. So in the end, when you are supposed to ask questions to the interviewers, I heard somewhere that you could ask why they wouldn't hire you, so that they give some points, and you can clarify as to how you can solve them. Say you don't live near enough, can be like, I can move. I can always move if I get the job or something like that. Is that right? Is it fine to do that?
So as far as that question is concerned, it's a dynamic question. Okay, because you
it's also very subjective.
Exactly. So you never know whether the interviewer will take it in a positive light or in a negative light, right? Which is why, like, we didn't mention that you guys should ask it, right? But if you feel like the interviewer is someone who's throughout the interview tried to help you to reach answers, or tried to help you to be get the best, then maybe you can, right? That decision I leave to you guys. So I personally, I asked that question to my interviewer, and that's when he told me that I was confident, right? So I don't know. I asked the question to him because I felt like he's someone who would answer the question to me honestly and without being offended. So I hope that clears the doubt that you had.
Yeah, sure.
So make an educated guess, see the vibes and whatnot, and based on that, you up to you. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, actually it's the same like doubt which I just was able to ask. So I want to ask, like, we till now we have given like many, not many, like few PIs, and usually in PIs and even in forms we fill for any club or event, the last question they usually ask is, do you have something to ask to us? So, and especially in PI, after the PI, they ask, do you have something to ask from us? So, what do you suggest, or what do you think should be like say for that?
So you're talking about like club specific
PIs, normal PIs,
Okay.
mostly PIs too, informs too. I basically like before that I just totally new to these clubs, these forms
Okay.
and everything. So everything is experience. We like experience here in college only.
Correct.
So till now, what I experienced is that. And I face totally literally you can say too much problem and like confliction to ask anything, and what should I say for that?
Okay. So you mentioned too much like conflict, right? What is the conflict about? Let's discuss that afterwards.
So what should like if I should ask something or not, or should I just say no, I have nothing to ask?
Okay. So if they have the option, if they give you the option to ask a question, that means they are ready to answer that question. Correct? So what you can do is you can make use of the opportunity and ask them a question. Okay. Now comes the question, which is, what question should I ask? Right? That your primary question?
Yeah.
Okay. So now that the answer to that question, as in what question you're going to ask them, is very subjective. Okay. And I'm not saying that just to be dismissive of the question, right? The reason is, let's say that let me use the example that Kratika had given you about music group, right? In her the question part thing, if she had asked the question something along the lines of until now I've been a bathroom singer only, do you think this can translate well, or do you think that I will fit into the club compared with other maybe professionally trained singers or so on, right? What do you think their answer would have been? Their answer would have been along the lines of while your talent might not be comparable with other people. Sorry, Kratika, no offense. Yeah. So while you might, yeah. So while it may not be comparable, this is the kind of experience that you can expect when you join the club. So now you have an idea of how things will be like when you join the club, and they have an idea about you. So in the end, it's about information exchange and the thing that you mentioned, experience, right? It's about gaining experience. So ask something that is related to the club, something that you feel either it's a doubt that you have, or something along the something a little bit personal, right? Like what, like you can describe yourself and ask them, this is the kind of person I am. Do you think I'll have a good time in this club? Or don't ask it in that way. That sounds a bit rude, but yeah.
Okay,
Maybe.
thanks a lot.
Yeah. Also,
Kartika,
to add on
yeah.
to what Abhishek, yes. To add on to what Abhishek was saying, every club conducts briefings and some session before the actual process starts. So you can always take out things from those. You would certainly have some doubt or the other during those briefings or anything. Take them and you can always ask them during the interview. That is one way.
That works even for companies because they'll have something
Yes.
called as the PPT. That is pre-presentation talk, right? So there they will
Pre-placement talk. Yeah.
pre-placement talk. Sorry, yeah. So there they will explain about the company, what kind of role they're looking for, and what is expected from them. So if you guys have any doubts there, you can. That is a place you can ask, like the interview. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, so I have one question.
Okay.
What do you think would be an ideal rating? Like in every PI they ask, what do you think? How much you will rate your
Yes.
interview?
So what do you think
Nice.
the yeah? So what do you think the interviewer is trying to gauge from that when he or she asks you?
Honest opinion of yourself on your interview.
Yes, correct.
Um,
So yeah,
mhm.
Kartika, you can go ahead. Fine.
No, Abhishek, you go on. Yeah, you were saying
No,
something.
I'll make a point. My point after you. You make yours. It's okay.
Yeah, so certainly they are, looking for an honest rating. Yes, you need to be honest, but generally we tend to be over humble. And I wouldn't even say over humble. We are nervous, okay, when we go into an interview. So we tend to become underconfident and we try to give ourselves less rating than we should actually would have thought. So it shows to the interviewer also that we are underconfident. Now this is very personal opinion of my own. So I don't give myself very high rating, but I don't also give myself a very low rating when I know that I have done well in the interview, in my opinion. So it is my opinion, like the rating is going to be my own opinion of my own analysis of whatever of my own interview. So I can say, in my opinion, I think I lie in this. Give a reasoning for the same. Why you want to? Why you have given yourself that rating? Yeah, Abhishek.
Yeah. So a method that I use is, so generally when people ask this question, the answer, the way in which you answer this is you start off by saying, I would rate myself 7 out of 10 because so and so. Try the other way around. Start by listing out the points, what you think you did well, what you think didn't, that you could have done better, and then give the rating. That shows the interviewer that you're trying to introspect and you're analyzing, and you know basically you're dissecting yourself and trying to come up with a fair response. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, I got your point.
Okay. I hope that answered your question. If you guys have any more questions?
I actually want to ask something related to the thing the Sarthak has asked the question.
Okay.
Do you think the reason of asking the rating thing can possibly be to test our confidence? Not in PIs too, in interviews too. If they ask something like that, should can it be possibly related to the confidence thing we have on ourselves?
100%. So it's about finding the thin line between being confident and not being arrogant, right? So if you say 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
usually that's not taken in positive light, right? Unless you've excelled the PA and you showcase with confidence that these are the things that I feel like you expected from this PA and these are the things that I delivered, right? If you think that that is fine, you've done that well, then sure, go ahead with that, right? So it is about confidence, it is about understanding yourself and what you can improve and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Sure. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we ask for the review or how much would you rate for this interview, should
Okay.
we re-ask that am I analyzing myself and giving the rating, or how they conducted it? I mean, on which basis should I ask this
Can you
question?
repeat that? Can you repeat that? I'm.
Yeah, there are two ways to analyze an interview: the way it
Okay.
was conducted and the way I reacted.
Okay. So if you
So,
want the best response, you should do a little bit of both. Do you get it? Include points on how.
no, I didn't get.
Okay. So when you're talking about how they conducted it, what do you mean?
I mean, how did they conduct the interview? Like, was it well going, or was it arrogant, or something like that? I mean, my question is that whenever they ask for a rating, are they asking? I mean, there are two ways of rating an interview: the way it was
Okay.
conducted and how we reacted for it, or how did I attend the interview. So, should I ask them
So
that
is your
in which
doubt
perspective?
whether they're asking you to rate them as in the way they conducted the interview, or are they asking you to rate yourself? Is that your doubt, or is that the
Yes,
stem of your doubt?
yes.
Okay, fine. When they ask you to rate the interview, when they just say, how would you rate this interview? Usually they mean how you've done. Okay. And to justify how you've done, you can bring in points from how they conducted the interview. For example, you can say, I found that in this interview, you guys asked a lot of questions which was testing my creativity, right? And in these questions, these are the way that I answered. This way, including the style in which they conducted the interview and the way in which you reacted. But primarily, they generally mean how you've done. Okay, all unless they specify that how would you rate like us as interviews or something, which clubs and companies do ask. So yeah, good question. Kratika, you want to add something?
Yeah. To add on to the same thing, I think if you read, like, if they have just left an open-ended question, which generally people do, and I personally like open-ended question because they leave the room open for you to ask for any clarification, and that is where I can gauge if you are aware of what we are trying to ask. So if you think that the question is too open-ended and you don't think that it is complete, you can cross question and say the same question that you asked us. You can ask them, are you expecting me to rate myself or the interviewers? So you will get more clarity as well.
Yep, that was
Yeah,
nice.
okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm happy that we have so many questions. So you guys, it means that like you guys didn't have any idea on how to attend group discussions or PIs. So yeah,
And
happy you could help.
Abhishek,
Yes.
I'm sorry to
yeah,
interrupt,
one more.
but
Yeah.
I actually have another meet at 8:30. So
Sure. No, the session is
Yes,
over. This is
over.
just
Yeah.
for questions like you guys
yeah,
have.
but thank you for such a wonderful workshop. I think it's one of the best workshops I have attended till now.
Thank you for your feedback. You're welcome. We tried our best to. There's a lot of content, and we tried to fit it into as little time as we could. We are glad that you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Abhishek, one question I had was that, see, you're attending an interview. This actually happened to me, and PI, and you start off thinking that you would be a good fit for the, say, the position or the team or anything, and in between you just lose it's going so bad that the research which you did was completely wrong, and that now you find that you are no longer interested in working in this team. You find something very uninterested. I mean, you find yourself uninterested in the field and you totally lose the will to answer questions. What do you do in that case?
Interesting question.
Hmm.
Especially if it has
So
happened to you. Kratika, you
No,
can
this
take it.
happened to me for the our
You don't have to
content
mention.
page.
You don't have to mention any clubs. It's okay.
Yeah. Don't
Extremely
don't
sorry.
don't mention
Extremely
the
sorry.
names of them.
It's okay. It's okay. It's
Totally,
okay.
no, it's totally fine. Yeah. So whenever a situation like this happens, in club interviews, there is one thing. like whenever you are going for a club interview, if you have become disinterested in any club, there is always you have the choice to back out of the process. You always have the choice. It is not the best advised one, because generally clubs might blacklist you if you are doing it. But if you have already made up your mind that I'm not fitting to the team, I don't think you will be applying for the lateral induction as well, like the subsequent induction that take place for those who have missed out the first set of inductions. So if you have made up your mind that you want to back out, then you can back out. The choice is always in your hand. Now,
But
if you
but the
Abhishek, go
way
on.
in which you put forward that you'll be backing out should be in a polite manner. It should have the reason as to why you feel like you would not be a good fit, or that you expected something and something else is actually like the club offers, right? That should be
Yes,
distinct and clear.
absolutely right.
Yeah, I understood. I guess in that interview, in that particular interview, I actually told them that there might be better fits for this position and that I'm not qualified. And the senior was, I would say he or she wanted to, make me feel better and said, don't sell yourself really short. Yeah, try, go on, and then we'll try to select or something like that.
So
But
that's
I
a
guess in a
good,
real interview, they're just like, okay, fine.
probably, yeah. But that was a good interviewer. Like, he made you feel comfortable, and yeah, that
Yeah,
I'm happy.
Yes. This reminds me that interviews are very subjective. There will be a lot of types of people, and one thing that people generally like make a mistake is, by one person they gauge the entire club, and that's not the same. If you don't like your interviewer, then it's not the same as not liking the club or not liking the company. So keep this thing also in mind.
yeah, okay.
Any other questions? If you guys want to ask us about our experiences, also it's fine. We've tried to share. If you want some more light into that matter, also you can ask, or just generic questions that are bothering you. That also you can ask about this session or previous sessions, or in general Toastmasters. Also, it's fine.
Okay, I think there are no more questions. So we will close it and have a nice time, all of you.
Stay tuned for the showcase event, and
Yes.
thank you for attending, and hope you guys took something away from it. Right?
Yeah, sure, seniors. We actually enjoyed it, and we learned a lot of new things. So thank you for conducting this workshop.
Vignesh,
Thank
do
you,
you want to say
Trichy.
something?
Yeah, I just thank you guys. You've been such a terrific audience. Like, you are so interactive. I didn't expect this much, interaction from juniors. Like, you don't seem like freshers. That's all.
Okay. So, yep, that's it, guys. See you. Nice talking to you. Good night.
Thank you,
Have
Pat.
dinner. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, seniors.
Yes. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Bye, all of you.
In favor.
Bye bye.
Bye, seniors. Bye. Bye. Bye, guys.
So, Vignesh and Kratika, you like just stay back.